Hello, my name is Andrew Goff. I am the coordinator of the lead instructor of the ECE department at Colorado Northwestern Community College. And I am just finishing up the planning for tonight's administration in early childhood programs. And we are on module number 1 of the course, and the topic is understanding the context for managing and leading an early childhood program. So when I say context, I mean the unique social conditions within a program and outside of the program. We'll be discussing the challenges that administrators in early childhood programs often encounter within their context and within the program, and then how to adapt to those challenges. One of the key points for the students to understand in this module is that in order to address the contextual issues, we need to create inclusive environments where all stakeholders, children, family, teachers, teaching assistants, service providers, feel a sense of belonging and dignity. So let's see what resonated with the students after completing this module. All right, we're going to talk about what resonated from the class. My name is Andrew, and I am here with Tyra.
Hello.
And I'm here with Jay.
Hello.
Jay and Tyra, thank you for joining. So what we talked about in this class was context and how context makes a difference on the way that we as administrators, we as teachers are impacted in an early childhood program. So a lot of our conversation was based on the work of on a podcast with Adam Grant, Taken for Granted, with Brene Brown, and then a webinar with Floyd Cobb and John Crownapple. So I want to hear, Tyra and Jay, if you can just share what resonated with you in class today. So we'll start out. Tyra, you want to start?
Sure. So just taking back everything that I've learned from module 1 and talking about it more in depth in class, I would definitely just think of kind of like the communication and language of everything. In the Brene Brown podcast, I actually wrote down a quote that was talking about how language can give us more power, and which I definitely could agree with more. It can give us more power of like concise feelings and everything like that, and just more context of a situation and like communication or like dealing with families or everything. But it also just gave a different perspective of being on the administrative business side of early childhood education.
All right. And Jay?
So Brene Brown definitely resonated. And Tyra, I also wrote that quote, giving language to hard things gives us power.
Yep.
I think that even to piggyback off of that with the John Crownapple and Floyd Cobb webinar, that language helps to create some of the 3 key points that they discussed, which were inclusion, belonging, and dignity. And with our language, we're capable of creating inclusive spaces, dignifying and validating our coworkers, as well as our students, and maybe even other individuals in our community, which can then create a sense of belonging that really is based off the quality of the experience that the individual is having in the environment. And so those 2 pieces of information really resonated because they complemented one another so much as well.
If there was a director who's thinking about creating a program, and you were trying to give them advice about considering the context and the contextual issues that we had discussed. So contextual issues, teacher compensation, turnover,
burnout,
challenging behaviors, qualifications, access, teacher quality, all those things. Each of you, what one piece of advice would you give them?
The biggest advice is just giving opportunities to the staff for feedback, and not necessarily like committing to what they're going to everything that they're going to say, but definitely having that perspective, because they're the ones like in the classroom every day doing the work and in that that field specifically. So just getting as much perspective as possible and like being open. Like we talked about the dignity model and just being open and listening and like just hearing everybody's input and making a decision off of that.
Thank you. Yes, I think that I can agree that listening to people is central to being able to understand the context. And it's not just your employees, it's the families, it's the children. And then something that someone brought up in class was, I think maybe it was you, Jay, about how important, oh no, it was another student, how important it is to have that communication, that take that perspective of your own colleagues. And that when we can't take the perspective of our colleagues, that can often create an environment that is very counterproductive to addressing the contextual issues or just being able to respond to the context that we're working in. Jay, if there was one thing that you had to provide recommendation, what advice or what recommendation would you give to a director?
Brene Brown's quote, "Become good at discomfort." I think in a leadership role, I think Brene Brown even might have discussed this, but I've heard it elsewhere. A leader who doesn't take a stance in any which way really doesn't gain much respect or really doesn't stand for much. And so being able to sit with the discomfort of maybe feedback or trying different ideas that your staff bring up to you, I think is essential in being able to create those environments of inclusion, belonging, and dignity, because you might have to hear a different perspective that you're not the most comfortable with. And instead of invalidating and shutting down, this goes back to, can't remember what the name of that model was, but the very colorful, pretty one that looks like a flower, the dignity model. Part of that empathy and validation, you might feel a little uncomfortable hearing new things or things that challenge your own sense of self. But once you're comfortable and you know how to regulate in that, it, like you said, can create an environment that's actually very conducive for growth and just a really good, well-nurtured environment.
Well said. I like it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jay, and thank you, Tyra. For anybody watching, I will put the links for the webinar that we were talking about with Floyd Cobb and John Crownapple, as well as the link to the podcast with Adam Grant and Brene Brown, Taken for Granted. And if anybody wants anything to contribute, well, those can be contributed in comments. So thank you so much.